Hi guys, welcome back to another tutorial video. Yeah, so I'm gonna give a quick little demo and then also just kind of like talk about the theory behind it. So in my previous video, I talked about comfort website, so like a therapeutic web experience engineer, and I didn't really make that framework clear, but basically the whole idea with digital mental health is that a lot of these apps and services and web games work, except they have huge attrition rates, which means people download them or use them, and a few days later, a few weeks later, they completely stop using them. So the whole idea of a comfort website is to personalize it, especially with the growth of technology. I feel like people can, like even non-technical people can create websites like these. Maybe not directly right now, because this is kind of like what the demo was. I was just trying out how fast I can make a comfort website with about zero knowledge. So I'm just showing you a demo here, but if you watch my previous videos, I feel like you can do everything that I'm showing in this video, but I'm still just going to demo it anyway. Yeah, so we have some things over here. You can see needs and intimacy calendar. So it's probably more of a therapeutic concept here over here, but it's kind of like managing needs because one of them has anxious attachment, the other one is avoidant attachment. If you don't know what that is, that's totally fine. But the website is kind of like geared around attachment theory. And then there's also to attach it because they're a couple, to attach it through the Up movie, which I think is actually really cool because they have all the attachment styles in the movie. Like Carl, he's very avoidant initially, right? He kind of like shuts everyone out. And Patricia, who is a fictional character in part of this website, she also has avoidant attachment. And yeah, all of them mostly unsecure at the end and so on and so forth, but it's kind of just like a nice way to keep doing that. And then I didn't add a bunch of interactions over here. There's a little bit of fun ones, I guess, just for fun. So maybe there's something over here. And then there's also a night mode, which I don't actually like the way I baked it because it kind of looks like that AI haze over here. So I probably should fix that, but whatever. It's just a prototype. So you can come over here to look at information and credits. Of course, information and credits are all on the GitHub repository. Okay, so I just want to like revisit some actionable design principles that I put out previously, and I want to add a few more. So I think solving attrition by designing digital twins, so kind of gives some more emotional resonance. So my idea was like this either like a digital twin or like an idealized digital twin. Like if they had like a dream house together, what would it kind of look like? And this is kind of like what I would put together for this couple over here, this fictional couple for the website. And then also using analogies, which I'm actually kind of surprised I didn't put over here. But yeah, using analogies to explain concepts is definitely really, really well. Definitely a really key thing to make mental health a little bit easier to grasp, especially using popular characters like movies. So this definitely goes into nostalgic objects. Sorry, yeah, nostalgic objects. Also a little bit of a comedic cliche, but yeah, and also context awareness. And then of course we also have a lot of other things that I have over here, like growth narrative. So you can see it's the truism over here. It won't be easy, it'll be worth it, sort of thing over there. So I don't think I followed everything, but I followed, a few of them tailored to the specific needs of this couple. So again, just to say that attrition rates are doo-doo butter for electronic mental health, and it's every mental health care app or web-based service or game is all come to my world rather than the world itself being an intervention. So the moment you make it like a digital twin or their world representative of their world rather than come to my world or come to my game, then I feel like that completely shifts attrition in some sort of way. So that's kind of like the general theory of why I made this website, and it's like my first prototype for it. So there is a lot of things I wanted to add. So if I go back to the Blender file, you can see that I wanted to add like an iPad. And this was like if you wanted to like import your mental health care app over here or have like digital exercises or like upload sort of informations. I also wanted to make the calendar editable, so you could like flip a 3D calendar, but you could also like update it. That'd be pretty cool, like a canvas texture that you update with the text, and then it shows on the 3D object calendar there. So that's just like other things that I want to add. So I think that naturally begs the question, you're asking a therapist and psychologist to learn Blender and Three.js. That's kind of pretentious. Sounds like virtue singling broski. So I actually want to address this. I think as tools get more abstracted, it's not they have to learn Blender or Three.js. It's like we can create tools where they can create personalized environments for their clients. And then it's also, again, it's not just for, so there's that second role over here. It's also someone who's not officially clinically trained, but still designs for something. For example, actually, I'm writing an article, so here are some potential success metrics. Here you can see maybe we can reduce like cognitive load on nurses by reducing pre-surgery anxiety, or maybe like a bullying comfort website, and students show, you know, improvements in their self-esteem and class engagement and so on and so forth. So right now I feel like cool websites is designed for selling, designed for marketing, but like why not cool websites equals design for emotional support and growth as well? That'll like open a huge, you know, sort of market rather than just creating cool stuff all the time. Because like at a certain point, maybe it's just me, but like accidentally, it's like if I just keep creating marketing content, then it's like what's my work even doing? Like, am I just an attention seeker, or am I actually going to support someone? And then I feel like so many artists already try and design for emotional support and growth through their art themselves. So why not actually make that a career field itself? So of course I need to validate this stuff before it kind of becomes a field or whatever, but that's kind of just like my general theory, and then kind of just like why I'm pushing this idea so hard. And this is kind of like my first attempt at trying to push that. So I'm going to reach out to some professionals and so on and so forth just to see if that works. And to put another point on that, designing for healing is literally AI immune, because a robot's not going to be able to do that for a really, really long time. I think another really, really cool thing about having this sort of framework, or this sort of mindset, or whatever you want to call that paradigm, blah, 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 is that you'll literally never run out of ideas, because it's always based on someone new, and every human has their own complexity, right? Now, of course, there's going to be some repetitive stuff, so maybe like a thought log, so maybe like therapist reactcomponents.com, or vanilla or whatever, and it would have like a bunch of stuff like needs calendars, like homework sheets, but digitalized, so they can like input stuff, maybe just use local storage, no database or whatever, you know, something like that. But like for the other things, I feel like I can't really run out of ideas, because it's always trying to read someone's internal world and externalize it into a website. Like that's the whole entire idea of a comfort website. You take someone's internal world and you externalize that into a website, and if you get that accurate, if they like it, it means they're going to trust you significantly more, and you know, maybe the bond that you have with them is going to increase in trust, and again, that goes back over here to help and alleviate some current trust issues. Then of course, if you get it wrong, well then they're not going to trust you, and that either you adjust for it or talk it out and so on and so forth, or you know, they just find someone else and so on and so forth. So if I had to be professional about it, maybe instead of like comfort websites, it's like matched environmental design, or like matched therapeutic environment design or something like that. And then we'd have like different kinds of designs or environments that we could create, like holding environments, where it's just about like being there. I guess companion could also be like part of the holding environment or whatever. Same with practice environment. It can be all three at one time. I guess it kind of just like depends on what we're kind of building towards. But like imagine like visualizing depression or something, or like creating progress. So as you progress in how many social interactions you have, your companion grows with you. And I feel like in the past, maybe that's just like kind of absurd in some sense, but now that technology is growing, I feel like the mental health professional itself can create it itself, or just, you know, maybe not a mental health professional itself, but also just someone individually. So when it comes to the technical side, I did basically zero coding for this. So everything was Blender MCP and Cloud Code. So I talked about the MCP in a previous video. You can go watch that one as well. But yeah, I have the official Blender MCP. And I did zero coding. I don't think I had to manually change anything with the codes other than just a prompt. So I think that's just like, that's so cool. And this is exactly why I feel like you don't really have to be that technical. I think there was only about like 3 times out of about like 50 prompts, I think I did maybe like 40 prompts. I think out of 40 prompts, I only did like 3 things where I felt like I actually needed to know how to code in order to fix it. So like out of 40 prompts, I think there was like 3 times where I guess I needed like prerequisite knowledge. Otherwise, it would have just been like infinitely spiraling. Now, of course, that's definitely biased, because I knew like intuitively like what sort of steps I should take, and also like how to minimize each functionality or layer each functionality. That way, it doesn't cover too much ground at one time, which I know will likely fail, versus, you know, how do you compartmentalize that? So there's no way to, I guess, sort of measure that sort of metric, if that makes sense, like how to architecture my questions rather than one sort of feature over another at a specific sort of time. That's all like built-in intuition, so I don't really know how to measure that. But I know when it comes to like, oh, I have to know something before this fixes the AI, I feel like it's only a few times. So if I go back to Blender and just show you how I helped out the AI, I basically just created a bunch of hitboxes in this collection over here, exported that as a separate GLB. I didn't need to do that, but I did it just because I want to speed up development time. And then for each hitbox, when I wanted to move the camera somewhere, I just created a camera for it, and then I just exported that data. Well, you could either export it, but I also just asked Claude directly to take those camera positions and use those itself, so it kind of like manually coded it in. But you could also export it as a JSON and then hot module reload and listen to if that data changes and then just automatically update that way. I feel like if you're going for a larger project or working with a team, that would be better, but I just directly fetched it from Claude, and I only had to move like one camera one time for a readjustment. But most of them I did a decent job getting them in rough sort of area positions. So if you ever want to like preview the camera, you just click on the camera, control numpad 0 just to jump to it. So, oh, sorry, it's making like orthographic. Then I select this one over here, control numpad 0, and just go in there, and so on and so forth. Oh, I think my cameras were orthographic by any chance, but you can also just come over into scene over here, and then you can just set your default camera over here as well. So you can do that, or you can just, if you have a numpad, just control 0 numpad just to go to that. And of course, if you watch my previous video, you can also do the view over here, camera, and so on. So I also used a bunch of empties, as you can see here. Like if I hit my period key just to jump to it, you can see candle empty over here. Same with balloons empty. So basically I just had the empties. Again, you can also export this as data and use it that way. I just said, hey, Claude MCP, create a candle where my candle underscore empty is in my Blender file. And that's pretty much all I did. So I never really had to touch these because they were working out of the box pretty well. There's also things like sunlight, position, and target empties. Again, for longer term projects, you probably want to use an export data rather than Claude to fetch that data. But for me, it was fine just to do it a few times. Card animation was done with shape keys. It's just one shape key over here. You can see it like so. So basically, yeah, that's all I did. I used the knife tool to cut out the big sheet and then just moved the vertices later. So you can see that it's just, that's pretty much all I did. And I just played that shape key inside the Three.js. I also did make some adjustments to my asset prep tools. I haven't uploaded the recent one yet, so you might get an outdated version because I'm still in the progress of determining what I actually want on here. But you can find the original one on my GitHub. But one really cool thing that I found this time is you can look at my compositor here, and it's the default one. You can actually use it to set up a compositor for you. And here you can just see like, I don't have to do anything. It's already setting up the entire thing for me. Super cool. I also spent a bit of time looking into existing plugins and seeing if I could somehow translate that into Three.js. And if I come over here and I actually look at dpaint, and you can actually see there's a Cloud folder here. So you probably used a little bit of AI assistant as well. So that's just actually kind of really cool just to see that other people are also kind of using AI to help speed up their workflow. Anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. Overall, 3D websites are getting way easier for AI, so it's about time we start merging roles. Take care and see you in my next video. Peace out.